Hi everyone, it's Rachel back with the Shades of Orange, and today I'm here to do a video recommending horror books about creepy children. And specifically, I mean books where the children in the story are creepy. So this is not horror books for children or just horror books that involve children, but if there's children in the book, they're pretty creepy. And in my opinion, as a mother, I would say that children in general can be really creepy. They're basically little sociopaths, and we have to parent and teach them to get along with other people and show empathy, etc. And so I just really love this subgenre, and I'm kind of shocked I've never done this video before. To the best of my knowledge, I don't find it in my backlist. So hopefully I have some really good recommendations for you all. Hopefully a few books that are more underhyped to put on your radar. And yeah, if you love creepy kids as much as I do, hopefully you'll stick around. Let's get started. First, I want to talk about Come Little Children by Dee Melhoff, which follows a woman who wants to go and get experience working in a mortician's office. And so she gets a job working in the Yukon region of Canada for a mortician that is actually a family business. And so at the beginning of the story, she comes across this strange little child that appears to be all sewn up, but is still living. Their heart is still beating. And then the child disappears, and the rest of the family just blows it off and just ignores the fact that she possibly saw something. And the story is a good blend of supernatural horror along with a lot of family drama, because she really gets pulled into the family dynamic. She actually gets involved with one of the sons, and the story definitely goes from there. But if you want some really creepy children moments, you'll get that with this book. Also, because of the fact that it's set in a mortician's office, you also get some good body horror, which you know I love. And so it's creepy, it's disturbing. I learned a lot about some of the work that you do in a mortician's office. And yeah, creepy children, the reason I want to recommend this one is I feel like it's a bit of a hidden gem. It's very underhyped. I never hear anyone talking about it online, and I really enjoyed it. So I would definitely recommend it. Not a perfect book, but it definitely fits the bill for a creepy kid story. Next, I can't make this video without including one of my personal favorites, and that is Nosferatu by Joe Hill, which of course is a story of a young girl named Victoria who has the ability to find things, and she gets mixed up with this horrible villain named Charlie Manx, who takes away children in his Royals Wraith car in order to take them to Christmas Land and save them from their terrible parents. And this is a book I love for so many reasons. I'm constantly recommending it in different videos, but often I skip over the fact that when Charlie Manx takes the children away to Christmas Land, they change, and the children become absolutely creepy. They start calling people, specifically Victoria, and they're singing songs, and especially if you do the audiobook version, you get these really creepy kid voices, and oh my goodness, they are terrifying. They just will not leave the main character alone, and they're just these little zombie-ish children that are just so cheery but so creepy all at the same time. I feel like Joe Hill wrote them perfectly. And so again, it's an element of the story which has honestly a lot more going on, but the children in the story are wonderfully creepy, and I never mention that enough, so I want to include it here. Next, I want to recommend Sour Candy by Keelan Patrick Burke, and this follows a man who is childless by choice. He is going out one day to the supermarket when he comes across a kid having a tantrum in front of their parent because they won't let them have the candy that they want. He kind of rolls his eyes and just thanks himself for the fact that he chose not to have kids. However, something goes wrong, and this particular child ends up following him home and tells him that he is actually now his child and he can't really get rid of him. This child is what I describe to be an old-timey child. He's in old clothing and just seems to be a little bit displaced by time. And he's also, of course, very, very creepy and very obsessed with candy. And this is a book I always like to recommend to those that are childless by choice, because this book will be very validating of your life choices. And I think that the author does a really good job of telling a creepy kid story in just a short length, because this is a novella. And yeah, it's just the fact that like you want this child to go away. He is awful, and no one else but this man thinks that this child is a problem, and everyone else just seems to think that he's always had a kid. And I really like how the story goes. I just thought it was a lot of fun, and is one that I love to recommend whenever I have the opportunity to. Next, I'm going back to another favorite, and that is The Exorcist by William Peter Blatty, which of course is the iconic story of the young girl Regan who gets possessed by a demon after playing with a Ouija board, and her mother, of course, is very concerned and seeks out the help of experts and eventually goes to the church to get her exorcised. And this is a book, of course, I love because I love possession stories so much, but I often forget to talk about the aspect of how creepy Regan is when she is possessed by that demon. Especially, again, if you do the audiobook version, the author does an amazing job of those scenes where you get to hear their voice, and it's just so disturbing to have this young child, because unlike in other books, the victim is quite young. Like, she really is more of a child than a teenager, and she says the most disturbing things. It is so sexually explicit and adult and just the most foul language coming out of this little child's mouth. And I think a lot of us have seen the movie, so we definitely have those images in our head of what she actually would look like, and the makeup in that movie was so well done. So if you enjoy a creepy kid story, this is one you don't want to miss. I read this book a couple times now, and I've got to say I appreciate it even more with each reread because of the fact that I really find it to be one of the scariest horror stories I've read. And I think a lot comes to the fact that the representation of the child is just so disturbing. So again, I think a lot of you have read it, but if you haven't, absolutely worth your time. It's a classic for a reason. And even if you've seen the movie, go back and read the original material. From there, I want to recommend a few graphic novels, the first one being Norman by Stan Silas. And this follows a young boy who I believe is in kindergarten, and he's obsessed with serial killers. He loves Jason and Freddy and all of them. And so when one of his classmates goes missing and has possibly been murdered, he kind of looks like the main suspect. And this is a book that is just very satirical. It's very funny, but also very adult and messed up. So you have these young children saying some very inappropriate things in some very inappropriate situations, and it's just a lot of fun. It's kind of predictable, but also really not, and I don't want to say too much about it, but if you love a little disturbing sociopath, you will love Norman. He is just, I don't know, in my mind, he's honestly like every kindergartner is, because like I said, kids are basically sociopaths to begin with. But I think the author takes the tropes of how children actually do act and just takes it to the next level to write a really fun story. Highly recommend, definitely one of my favorites. And I briefly want to mention the comics of Lenore by Roman Dirge, and there are a whole bunch of different comics that you can read, but they all center around this little girl named Lenore, and it's basically black comedy all centering around horror. There is lots and lots of content warning for harm to small animals and other people, especially children, and the author just is not afraid to go to some really disturbing places for the sake of a laugh. You've got to have a really black sense of humor to enjoy a collection like this, but yeah, I thought it was hilarious, so whatever that says about me. And so if you like a little disturbing girl, Lenore is quite the character. There are a lot of comics to check out, so if you enjoy it, you have a lot of backlist to go through, so highly recommend. And finally, I want to recommend a middle grade horror book, and that is Spirit Hunters by Ellen O, which follows a young girl who moves into a new house with her parents and younger brother. However, there is possibly a ghost or some kind of presence in the house. Her brother begins to act differently or weird, and she starts to worry that something has possibly possessed him. And this is a book where I want to recommend because the scenes involving the younger brother, despite the fact that this book is written for a younger audience, I found to be reasonably creepy. He says some disturbing things. Certainly it's not at the level of something like The Exorcist by any means, but he's just very creepy in what he says. And again, this is one I did on audio, and I really think that the right performance can really turn a sort of creepy kid into a really creepy kid. And the author, or rather the narrator, both nailed this, and I just thought that he was just really disturbing. And again, despite the fact that yes, this is written for younger readers, I as an adult still found it to be quite chilling. And so if you're looking for a more fun read, it has some great diversity in it. The characters are half Korean, and you also get conversations around kind of non-Catholicism based exorcisms. I really like this one and would definitely recommend it. Alright, you've made it to the end of the video. I would love to know down below which of the books I talked about are you planning on checking out, and also please recommend me more creepy kid books. I would love to read more of them, and if you are all interested, I would certainly do another follow up to this video with more creepy kid recommendations. If you're new to my channel, consider subscribing. I do read a lot of horror books as well as thrillers, science fiction, and fantasy. You can help me out by giving this video a thumbs up, sharing it around online, and also if you hit that little notification bell, you'll never miss a video from me. Thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to you again soon. Okay, bye-bye.